Hey everybody, it's Allie here with Deal With Your Shit, and I'm here with my high school friend, Carly Malchuk, and we are going to talk about dealing with your shit at all levels. Coming into this conversation and understanding, there's been a few people that I've interviewed along the way that have these pretty crazy stories, which have been so impactful for so many reasons, but, just touching on the points of, shit is shit. Shit is shit. And no matter how big or small it is, it's definitely needing to be addressed. So let's start with a little bit about your story. Dive into the parts that you feel comfortable diving into, and kind of talk about your process in it, and maybe those conversations you're having in your head around it maybe not being so important. I know I just word vomited on you, but yeah, take the reins here and let's go. Let's do it.
Sounds good. Yeah. So probably back in, what was it? 2015, 16, in and around there. I had graduated from university and I had this boyfriend. We were living together. We bought a house, and picture us, like looking at it outside in, you'd be like, oh, great. Look at you. You got this beautiful house. You got the boyfriend. You got your 2 dogs. You got a great job. Like, things are good. Things are good for Carly.
Yeah.
But everybody, you got your shit, you got stuff going on, right? And it's so funny too, like always going back to like social media, like Instagram, people are like, oh, this person's life is so fab, like they're out doing this, but it's like, that's the highlight reel, everybody.
Yeah.
Right. I posted this beautiful photo of me in a great outfit, but what you don't know is 10 minutes before that, I was like on the ground crying over whatever.
In there.
So yeah, I think everybody has, right? So just starting the story there, because I just really want to hit home that, like you said, like everybody has their shit, and it's, really hard. It's really easy for us to then look at people's stuff and then compare it instantly to who we are, what we're going through. So to start off with my story, I didn't experience, large physical trauma or even really big mental trauma in my life. I am pretty blessed in the fact that I just kind of, tickety-boo along through life and, lived a great childhood, and it is what it is. But that didn't stop me from being wounded or, gathering wounds and experiences in my life that then ultimately impact how I respond to things and ultimately create the lens that I see life through.
Absolutely.
So 2015, 16, living my life, but I was not happy. I was probably, physically, I was probably about 20 pounds heavier. I had really bad acne. Like mentally, I was just so insecure. I just, always felt like I was holding on to something so tight, but what I didn't know. Just that whole, inner monologue and dialogue. My ego was going crazy, like that inner voice in our mind. You guys surprised? That's not you. I know a lot of us think that, like, Allie's like, yeah, I get it. A lot of us think that voice inside our head is us, and it's not. It's actually our ego, and that ego was ultimately created to protect us. So it's not a bad thing. But through time, we're no longer running away from saber-toothed tigers. They're not like popping out of the bushes. So ego's now making us run away from things that make us uncomfortable. But sometimes those uncomfortable things are the things we need to deal with. Those things are your shit.
Exactly.
So that my ego was running wild. Like I was so insecure, just, always telling me that, you're too fat, you're too thin, you're too tall, you're too short, never happy.
Never enough.
Never enough.
Yeah.
And so ultimately in 2018, 2017, 18, around there, everything's so blurry because it happened so fast. I ended up breaking up with that boyfriend. And I would say that is what would have started what's called my awakening. So I kind of like took the blinders off on my life and what was going on and just really started to like look and see what that was.
Very cool. And like going through that, like I kind of want to really hone in because like I did that interview a week or 2 ago with Chris, and I have another one coming out with another guy, Justin, and they have very extreme stories. And I don't. Like my parents, yes, they're divorced, but like we've never done like Christmases apart. Like it's been a very blissful divorce. Yeah. And like I always had kind of like a narrative of like, I had these like wounds because my dad never showed up to my horse shows. And like after hearing their stories, like mad guilt, like, whoa, privileged little white girl doesn't have daddy at pony shows. You know what I mean? But like I had to circle back and be like, actually, no, it's still real. It's still created a narrative that's guiding my life in a way that I'm not I don't like. And I almost had to like, not only did I have to go and deal with my shit, I I still had to deal with the narratives around that it's okay that I have shit and that I'm dealing with shit and that there's something that needs to be done about it. Did you have those sorts of conversations in your head?
I mean, a little bit. So, obviously like any person going through a breakup, you go through these different stages. It's almost like mourning. You're like mourning the loss of like your old life basically, right? So there was like the sadness, then there was the anger and the guilt. And then ultimately I landed in what's called like a victim consciousness. Like I landed there and was like, why is this happening to me? Like I had it all figured out. I'm a good person. I've never done XYZ. I've followed the checklist of life. And yes, I've never had those traumatic issues. Like, so why am I just so in my own way? Like, and then feeling guilty that I was feeling this, having not gone through all these other things, looking at other people and what they've gone through and comparing. Like that comparison is like the craziest thing we can do for ourselves.
So then how did you get out of victim mentality? Because I think a lot of people are stuck there. That, oh, poor me.
Yeah. Like, to be honest, I didn't by myself. I really didn't. I think that loop would have stayed like on my mind. At first I thought I did. I thought I was like, okay, so how am I going to get out of this is by making myself busy. Right. And I feel like that's like the biggest like mistake that so many people, I shouldn't say mistake. It's just like our reaction. It's the biggest reaction that people have. And so I was like, okay, great. You know what? Now I'm an independent woman because now I'm on my own. So now I'm just going to dive into work. I'm going to be the best, sales managers that I can be. And so, which is fine. I mean, yeah, I started, gaining lots of success in my job and financially, but like as a person now, not only am I like not dealing with whatever came up for me during the breakup, I'm now overworked, I'm overstressed, I'm undernourished because now I'm not eating because I'm working so much. It's just this vicious loop. So I really tried to fill the hole that was created versus like with other external things versus fill it internally by dealing with the problem.
Right.
And so sorry,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so how I ended up doing that, I didn't even really seek it. I just kind of, I guess it found me. So my girlfriend from fashion school, I went to fashion school in 2008, and we stayed in touch. She was super successful as well in like her career. She had the top online clothing company, Canadian Women's Boutique, and all of these things. Like her amount of success too was just astronomical. But she ended up blowing it all up for herself because she was having, like everybody had her shit going on. And through that time, she found herself and realized that she's actually, I don't know what you want to call it, a psychic, a medium, energy healer. Like basically she taps into any energy across any time and can help you heal wounds that you don't even know you have half the time. So just my relationship with her, she started opening up to me about who she is, and she started helping me through all that. So we did things like finding out what my core wounds are. So those are like the pieces of you that are, causing you to react certain ways, and they're often impacted by things that have happened in your life. We did like past life regressions, because a lot of times energetically we're holding on to things that aren't even ours. They're from different versions of us. We did things like, what else did we do? Anything and everything. Density. So where do you hold energy in your body that's causing illness? And just through really remembering who I am at the core, not this like shell of a person and not, these external things that I have, but who is Carly? Like, who am I deep down inside? What are the pieces that are wounded? And then heal those things. And then ultimately through all that, I end up meeting what's called the highest self. So the highest version of who you are. That's like you at your prime. And as soon as you kind of realize who that person is, every day you take steps towards becoming that person.
Right.
So that's kind of how I like crawled out of that, is just knowing like, this is me up here of what I know I can achieve and what I'm going to achieve. And so every day just doing one thing to get me closer to that.
That's so funny you say that.
Really happens.
And you reached out for help, and whether you intentionally did or not, because I know that you guys went to school together, you guys had a connection already, but essentially you were stuck. You're stuck, you were feeding your like self from the outside in. And I've done that too, where I'm like, I'm too busy to deal, or like, I'm so busy and this is what's going to make me significant. And then I'll feel like I'm enough, and it doesn't fucking work. So just don't waste your time, people. It's got to come from like, it's like, it's got to be like a well, like it's got to come from the bottom up instead of from like the outside in. And like, I hear like, then you went and you met up with, her name's Coco.
Coco, yeah.
Yep. And you ended up going to an energy healer. 2 questions for you. One, how did like was reaching out and asking for help hard for you? Because I feel like it is for a lot of people. And two, how did you end up directly with an energy healer? Because I kind of feel like the story I'm telling myself is like,
Yep.
that's bad word, no judgment, but like that's like weird for a lot of people versus like, oh, I'll go to a psychologist, I'll go to a therapist, like, I'll go to a counselor, and you're like, no, fuck that noise, I'm going over here to have an energy healer. Like, how, like, was that hard for you to ask? And like, how did you end up over in this like energy healer world?
Yeah, like this is a really good question. And I think I'm a bad example when it comes to that, because Coco and I have been so close for so many years through me just literally venting to my girlfriend, not even knowing really what she is or what she could do. She had been kind of mentoring me in this world without me even being conscious to it. And so when she finally was like, hey, like, would you be open to coming in and allowing me to do like some density work on you, move around the energy? And at that point also, I was kind of at my rock bottom, right? So I was kind of just like, do you know what? Yeah, I was like, I'm doing all these external things to like kind of make me feel better, all these band-aids. So worst case, I'm going to go here. I'll feel great right after because I slept for an hour, and then I'll move on. Like I got, you know what I mean? Like I got nothing to lose. So I never really reached out to her for help, like officially, but through, girlfriends talking, you vent back and forth. She could see where I was at. And then she was kind of the one that was like, hey, like, come here, let me do this for you. And then, the proof is kind of in the pudding. Like my experience that I had with her and the lasting after effect of that was kind of what kept me going. So I never tried traditional talk therapy. Like I think it's a blessing for so many people, and like if that resonates with you, it's 100% what you should do. But I just kind of bypassed all that, and I just completely went on that route of kind of the alternative medicine, I guess you call it. I guess that's kind of what that would be in. What I don't even know what it's called. So yeah, I kind of bypassed it and went directly there. But now knowing who I am and what my purpose is in this world, it makes sense that I kind of took the bypass and didn't have to go through all that. I needed to speed up my pace to kind of be where I need to be, so I'm in purpose and for what I can deliver to the world now. Didn't know that then.
Right.
But everything definitely happens as it should.
So what I'm kind of like hearing from your story, you had a wound, something happened, breakup. Again, no one's exempt. Doesn't matter you have a silver spoon in your mouth or not. No one's exempt. So you take a hit. You look to fill it externally. Doesn't fucking work. You're now further away from yourself because you took that route. You're further away from yourself, further away from what you want to do. And now you've got even a bigger mess to clean up. Fortunately, you're able to get help, which a lot of people, struggle with, but just your girlfriends, like for you, it's a pretty organic experience, but you're able to go and get the help that you needed. And now you're in a place of alignment. Now you're in this place of like, I'm Carly. I'm giving a flying fucks what you think. Like, this is my purpose, my mission. Like, I'm sure ego creeps in for you still. I'm sure you still got that monkey on your shoulder.
Daily.
But you're probably, this is a little more grounded. This is a little more rooted in, and you're getting pulled towards something versus dragged backwards into something.
Yeah, that's actually a great way of describing it. So the ego thing is there constantly, especially in those situations where the wounds that you have healed, resided. It's still there. Ego is always there, and you're always going to be tested. But the difference is instead of staying in that loop, that, narrative in your mind, I'm like, well, okay, that's ego. I'm like, ego, get in the cage. I literally like picture it as like this little like dark energy. I'm like, get in the cage. I got the key. I'm throwing it away. I bring awareness. And even now I'm like, oh, okay, I'm reacting this way because of my self-worth wound. And that's all that it is. That's all that it is.
I love that.
So now we're going to move on. And how I reacted before, my like habitual reactions, the habits, I'm going to do the complete opposite and see what happens. Now that's how I'm kind of living my life. And that is how now I'm reversing that loop. And it happens less and less, still happens, but it happens less and less. Because then you're literally dealing with it. You're addressing it. You're acknowledging it instead of, I'll have another glass of wine to forget it. Because you don't forget it. Let's get real.
It doesn't go away. It doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away.
I love that. And I agree with you. Like, I feel like when I kind of got into my like deal with my shit journey, it's like I went into it like 30 pounds overweight. And it's like when you're 30 pounds overweight, it's a lifestyle change, and it's taking small steps, and you start kind of making those moves. And then you get to a place of like almost maintenance. And like this past weekend, I had a trigger, which would have like 3-4 months ago would have sent me in a spiral. But this time I saw it, I was like, ooh, that's my trigger around, like, I've got shame wounds around money and status. And I was like, I could just call it and like name it and be like, I know you're not here to help me. I know you're that like bad energy that's pulling me backwards. Whereas like, I'm going this way, bud. Like, you're just trying to keep me small. I feel you. I see you. I hear you. You've protected me in the past. I don't need you anymore. And you can kind of like call it, identify it, like almost like objectify it, and then toss its bitch ass out your way and get back on route. But like, it comes with time, and you just get faster at it.
Totally. And I've said this before whenever I'm talking about this subject, is I use this analogy of like a light in a dark room. So, you know, those little like construction lights that they like put on the ground and they like shine, it's super bright and it kind of has like a cage over it. Yeah. So I always picture one of those and like just an empty room, and I'm standing facing the light. As I'm walking towards the light, my shadow behind me is getting bigger on that wall. So as you're walking closer to the light, closer to you being in alignment, closer to you healing your shit and your wounds, your shadow behind you is going to get real big, because life is all about balance. So the closer you get to light, the more shadow and the more stuff that's going to be there to be like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to walk towards that light?
Oh, I love that.
What happens eventually is when you walk towards the light, you're just in the light. And all that shadow is just there. And you're like, I see you, I acknowledge you, but I'm in the light. So
I'm gone. Pick on someone else.
It's what it is. So that's the thing. Life's all about balance. So if you want it really good, something, you know, had to have happened or something, you know what I mean? Like there's going to be a balance there that you're going to have to just not even master, but just be able to acknowledge and actually deal with it versus just like band-aiding it.
I love that.
Band-aiding?
I use it. I'm like,
all right, great.
In this circle, you good. I love that so much. I've never heard that light analogy, because I agree with you. Like, I feel like the closer, like even this morning, my friend and I went for a hike, and like, I was like, man, I'm just struggling with some things. And she's like, yeah, like, it's called growing pains. Like they're growing pains. And she's like, if you want to grow, like you're going closer to the, like being in alignment with who you want to be. And, you know, you had comfort. Like you had like easy, like you had that, and you weren't fucking happy.
Like, how was that for you?
Fucking hated it. So like, so pick your pain. Like this one comes with growth, and this one, it's going to still have its growing pains, but like go towards it. And I agree with you. It's like the closer I get to being like standing in my own power or just being in my own awareness, the closer I get, the louder those shadows are. And I'm just waiting to like cross that line of like no return. And I'm sure it's not a real line. I'm sure there's always maintenance, but like, I just love that shadow analogy. Cause yeah, it feels like the closer I get to it, like it's almost like it's like they're grabbing at the last of me and like, no, you sure? And I was like, no.
Literally that's what it is, because it's like, if it was easy, everybody's gonna freaking do it. Yeah. Everybody would. And like, we live in this time right now of like, it's almost like a computer program, right? Like even like, look at what's going on in the world. We're not gonna talk about that, but there's stuff going on in the world right now that's intense, right? But with like intense energy is going to come intense change. So like you're in a computer program and it's a really, really, really strong software program. It's going to take a real big virus to try and stop that. Balance, all balance, or a really strong software program to keep the really bad virus away. Like however you look at it, right? So that you have to expect that. But what happens is, yes, as you get closer to alignment, there's going to be bigger things that are going to try and test you, but they don't feel bigger. That's also the difference, because as you get more in alignment with who you are, you're just so strong that you don't sway. You're just like, this is me. Like whatever's going to come my way, I can deal with, because I've dealt with X, Y, Z and all these different things before. So it sounds really intimidating, but really it's like, yes, it's a lot of hard, dedicated work, but it just becomes that becomes your habit versus the pain.
So someone wants to get in, someone might hear this conversation, like, man, those chicks, like that's where I want to go, is where those girls are going, that alignment piece, that like ego piece. I want alignment. I want purpose. Like someone that's going there and they're still in the mud. Like they're still in the, you know, I'm still eating, drinking, staying busy, dating the wrong people, like whatever it is, they're still in the band-aiding. It's our new word. They're still band-aiding. They're still in the band-aiding phase. What are your 3 tips to get them started? I know it's not like, 1, 2, 3, clean that mess up, but like 3 steps to getting some traction and getting started and going from ego and going over into alignment.
Yeah. Well, the first one is just knowing that this sounds harsh, you're not special and you're not alone. So whatever you are going through, know that there's always someone there that can help you. There's always someone that has lived that. There is always someone that can give you a different perspective of what's going on. So as soon as you figure out that you are not the exception to the rule, but you are the rule, all of a sudden you don't feel so hopeless because there's other people out there that can help you. You just have to find them. And I bet you they're closer to you than you think they are.
Or they're on Google. We have that.
Or they're on Google, or they're on a podcast like this, you know, like it doesn't even need to be someone that you have an actual conversation with. It's just being able to know that, you know, you aren't alone. You're not by yourself in this. And there are people out there that can help you. Literally, you're never alone. I guess my second tip then would be like dedicated. Just, you know, change does not happen every day. Like we are even seeing that in the world. Things are not going to happen overnight, but it's taking like one small step every day, reacting differently to one situation that's going to tip you over into a different timeline. Into, you know, I have always reacted this way when this happens. I'm just going to try it this way today. We'll see what happens. What do you got to lose? But be dedicated to that. Be dedicated to making those changes and becoming aware of that.
I love it.
Yeah. And then I guess, I don't know, what's my third one? I think it's just be really like kind and compassionate to yourself.
Yes.
Because this is the thing. This is hard work. People, like we said, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And why do we put a Band-Aid on things? Is because we don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
You don't. So, you know, you're not going to get it right the first time. You're not going to make the right decision every time. You might take one step forward, 10 steps back. But you know what? You take another one forward. And eventually you make up the distance. Like you just need to be so kind and compassionate to yourself because you are seeing things through your wounds. You are, you know, just this spirit in this like meat suit just walking around being like, what do I do now? You know what I mean? And you don't know what you don't know. So as long as you are dedicated to yourself, you understand you are not alone. And yeah, just be kind to yourself and others, but be kind to yourself.
First of all, next time I go to the bar and some guy hits on me, I'm gonna be like, yeah, you like this meat suit? What's up? You like my meat suit?
You'll be like, no, I'm vegan. And you'll be like, okay.
Well, we're done then. But what I love that you said, be nice to yourself. For me, that was like the hardest part. I was like, I should be this, I should be that, I should have it figured out. And you compare yourself to people on social media, which again, you know, like it's not what it seems, but like you still compare because we're just dumb. I don't know. And as I've helped other people through this journey, because I've gone to a place of like fully loving myself, and it was a journey because everything in marketing and advertising says don't, because if you love yourself and you're just enough, then like, what are you going to?
You're powerful. And they don't want you powerful because then you won't buy
that money
they're selling you.
Yeah. So I really took me a little bit of time to really learn to love myself. But now as I watch other people go through the journey, it's so black and white to me. Like if you're not your own team in this, like who the fuck is? And like if you're not your own team, like how do you expect to pick yourself back up? Like I always think, like for me, like my little sisters are they're like my babies, they're my everything. And like if I always say, like if the twins are twins, I'm like if the twins were in this situation, what would I do for them? It's like no, like go to the end of the world, like no expenses spared. Like I would just take care of them. It's like, hey, do that for you. Be that to you. Like would you speak that way to your little sisters? Like would you speak that way to your best friend? And if the answer is no, then don't you ever talk to yourself like that. Like be on your own team, be kind. And remember that like you said, like it is a journey. Doesn't happen overnight. And like you said, those little steps, Lex, one of our last guests on here, she said the same thing, like little steps are the big wins.
They really are, because it's overwhelming when you look at the big picture, right? But then what happens is when you look back, you're like, oh my God. Like I used to do what? I used to react how? But it's like when you don't realize, like if you're on a weight loss journey, you don't look at yourself and notice that you've lost weight until you look at photos of the old you. And then you're like, wow. Right. So those little steps, they add up. And also to your point of like, you need to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. It's like when you're on the airplane, you got to put your mask on first, because if you pass out, how the hell are you going to help anybody else?
Actually, you said something to me the other day that stuck. We had coffee last week. You said, what wouldn't you do for your soul?
What wouldn't you do for your soul? Mm-hmm. Like that's literally at the end of the day, that is all you have is you, the essence of you. You cannot heal anybody else. And okay, if someone tells you that they can heal you, you run the other way. No one in this world can heal you. They can give you the tools. They can prompt you, to think about things in a different way to help you heal. They cannot heal you. You heal yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are you willing to do for yourself? I mean, life is fantastic. Like during this like whole COVID thing and everything that's going on, like I have had the best few months, and it has nothing to do with anybody else.
Yeah.
It's because I have found who I am and I'm doing what I love. I am in alignment, and life is easy. everyone deserves to have an easy life.
Yeah.
It's really not hard when you figure out who you are and what you are not willing to take.
And when you know that when life does hit you, you have the skills, the courage, and the know-how to get back out. Like when people are like, what's confidence? It's like, for me, my confidence comes from the fact that like I can fail hard, and Lord knows I have. Like I can take hits. I can take hits and I can fail hard because I fucking know that I've got my own back in the trenches. Like I know that I will pull myself out. I'll learn something great from it, and I'll pick a better route for myself moving forward. And like, to me, that's confidence. Like, to me, that's where it comes from. And like, it does take being on your own team. It does take being dedicated to the process. But like you said, like, it's a win. Like, that's where the happiness lies. Like, go buy the Lambo if you need to. Like, go get famous if you need to. Go fucking eat all the food if you need to, just so you can learn. Like Jim Carrey says that. He's like, I wish everyone could get so rich and famous to realize like it's not what it's all about.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And it all comes down to intention. It's like, okay, you want to go buy that Lambo? Why are you buying the Lambo? Are you buying the Lambo to fill a hole? Or are you buying it because you appreciate the engineering and the technology behind it? Go get your Lambo. I don't care.
Yeah, totally.
If you're happy, good, but don't let it fill a hole.
Totally.
Allow it to bring happiness, not a hole filler.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super interesting when you start just like kind of viewing things a little bit differently than you used to. And that's the hardest part too, because we're so programmed, right? We're programmed through society. Like we're talking about marketing, we're programmed through our families' beliefs, through religion, through culture. You know, where in the world do you live? You are so programmed, and that is our reaction. So instead of reacting, it's like you have to start responding now. Start responding from that person inside. Because you know, like you said, you have everything you need to be your best self. You always do. Yes. It's just having the courage to say that you have that, trusting yourself to know that you have that, and then actioning it, doing those one little steps every single day.
I love it. I love it so much. Amazing. We're getting to time here. Any parting words? I've noticed a lot of people are watching this are like, actually a lot of men and women, a lot of people interested in personal growth, a lot of people interested in purpose and interested in achievement, you know, but stuck in their own ways. What would give me one piece of advice that you would give to that person?
Well, that's hard, but I think it just comes down to what we said. Just like, how far are you willing to go for your soul, for you? It's about you. Ultimately, it is. So what are you willing to do for you? And as long as you do what's right for you with the best intention, no one can say anything to the contrary.
It doesn't. At that point, they don't matter.
They don't matter. They're worried about themselves. They don't even care about you.
That's the hardest part, when you're like, well, what are people gonna think? And you're like, you egomaniac. Like, no, they're so busy considering themselves.
Get in the cage. I don't care.
Yeah, no one's watching. It's fine. Just go live your life. Like, oh, so good. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna hit record here, but thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I really enjoyed our jam here.
Thanks, Allie.